Meet Angie, a new MDE employee. Angie brings passion to her new role, whether working from the office or from home, and is excited to see how her ideas can come to life. But Angie's story as an educator begins long ago. As a special education teacher and administrator for the past 8 years, Angie brings a lot of experience. Over the years, she has grown professionally, learning mostly from her students on what they need to learn, grow, and become a part of the community they love. Angie has already started brainstorming ideas to further help students with disabilities. After a few short months, Angie has started settling into her new role, meeting colleagues from her division, attending stakeholder meetings, and talking with districts about what's going well and the challenges they are facing. Angie starts to think about those ideas she came to the agency with and wonders how she can put them into action. As she looks ahead, she realizes there is an annual event at the agency and thinks this may be a start to incorporate some of her ideas to help meet the needs of teachers and students. However, Angie isn't quite sure where to start. Where will the event be? How will the presenters be paid? Is she responsible for reserving hotel rooms? Luckily, there are 2 experts right in her division who will be there to help every step of the way. Meet Mei Ling and Ellie, who are state program administrators. In the special education division, this role assists staff with purchases, contracts, grants, and general budget and project management. In addition, the SPAs are a liaison between the special education division and the agency finance division, and often answer frequently asked questions. Throughout these videos, Mei Ling and Ellie will explain the processes involved in common fiscal procedures. This video contains information on the grants unit, information on specific types of grants, and the process that is necessary for special education staff when entering into a competitive grant. At MDE, the grants unit is a part of the agency finance division and consists of 1 grant coordinator who assists with all new grants in the agency. The grant coordinator provides the template documents and assists with the development of the grant. Additional responsibilities include accessibility checks, posting grant opportunities, providing reviewer training, and drafting award and denial letters. Once the grant has been awarded, the management of the grant shifts to a grant specialist who completes the risk assessment, drafts the OGAN and budget forms, and manages the financial reporting forms throughout the life of the grant. 1 grant specialist is responsible for all grants in the special education division. About a year into her time at MDE, Angie and a colleague looked to partner on an aligned initiatives stemming from the event Angie hosted. After they discussed their proposal with their supervisors, the project is approved for a total of $50,000 in grant funds to send to school districts to participate in various activities. Angie was somewhat familiar with grants in her previous role as a school administrator, but isn't quite sure how things work at the agency. Who writes the grants, she wonders, and how does she let districts know the initiative is available? To start, Angie learns that there are 3 types of grants: competitive, sole source, and legislative. Competitive grants are done through a request for proposal, or RFP, and makes any agency, organization, or school district eligible, so long as they meet the minimum requirements set out by the authorized representative. Sole source grants are done by completing a single source justification form and is used if only one agency, organization, or school district is capable of carrying out the program. Legislative grants are used if a specific agency, organization, or school district is named in legislation. Angie and her colleague will be doing a competitive grant, the most common type of grant used in special education. The competitive grants process is split into 5 phases, which is managed by the grant coordinator.
These phases go from drafting and finalizing the grant scope of work to posting and awarding the grant. The grant coordinator will communicate with Angie throughout this entire process before handing off the awarded grant to the grant specialist. This chart breaks down the phases and process more specifically. While all phases require action items of the authorized representative, Phase 1 requires the most attention and could take the most time. The first step of the process is to meet with the grants coordinator, who will introduce the templates and documents that need to be completed. A Teams SharePoint site will also be created to house and complete all the documents and should include all members of the team working on the grant. The Phase 1 documents include the instructional worksheet, budget worksheet, timeline calculator, and responsibility matrix. After meeting with the grants coordinator, the next step is to complete the instructional sheet and review the budget categories. The instructional worksheet, when complete, contains all the information potential grantees will need to complete the grant application, including the criteria for the grant, how to apply, and the selection process. There are several sections that the authorized representative is responsible to complete to help provide applicants the expectations and qualifications of the grant. These sections should be well thought out and will take some time to craft. This includes identifying team members involved, including supervisors, project managers, and perhaps colleagues from other agencies. Next, outline the purpose and outcome of the grant opportunity, including the history and any resources that align with the project. Also, provide examples of activities or deliverables that would align with the purpose of the funding to help potential grantees decide if they have the desired capacity to receive funding. Other sections include specific program expectations, eligibility criteria, which can be tailored to focus on a specific population, and data points. The next part of the instructional worksheet is the application narrative. The following are categories the applicants are asked to address, which include boilerplate instructions for each category. However, instructions and necessary components can be tailored to fit the specific need of the grant. The authorized representative has discretion as to what categories should be included, but the diversity and equity section is required to be included in every grant application. An example in this category could be the instruction to include identification of students with disabilities as an underserved population of students, or describe how a program will be used to bring equity to the district. Each category will be assigned points by the authorized representative based on the decided importance of the relationship to the desired grant outcomes. Here is an example of how each category might be assigned points, with the most important categories, or the categories to have more weight, being assigned more points. The authorized representative decides the number of points per category, with the most common point total is 100 in increments of 5. The applicants are aware of these assigned points as they are writing their narrative. Examples of the instructional worksheet, which includes the application narrative and budget review, can be found in the Division Teams SharePoint site. In addition to completing the application narrative, applicants will need to submit a proposed budget based on the overall total of the grant. While the authorized representative does not write the budget for applicants, the categories do need to be reviewed to decide if there are any items that will not be accepted in a proposal. Budget categories include salaries, benefits, purchased services, supplies and materials, equipment, and other expenditures and indirect costs. As you can see, there are many items that applicants could propose in their budget that could align with their project goals and activities. The example shown here is expenditures relating to salaries, supplies and materials, and equipment. The other two items in Phase 1 include the timeline and responsibility matrix, both completed by the grant coordinator. The timeline will show a start date for all of the action items needed for the grant, along with the amount of time each item will take. This timeline could shift as things take more or less time than anticipated. The responsibility matrix lists the activities and outlines who is responsible. The column highlighted in yellow indicates the responsibilities of the authorized representative. Both of these documents will be reviewed with team members and stored in the Teams SharePoint folder for reference at any time. Angie and her colleague review the instructional worksheet and they go over what might be included in the grant language. But they still feel a little unsure of how much information to include and wonder how to get some of the data and background information that is being asked. Angie's supervisor agrees that writing a grant for the first time can feel a little overwhelming, but assures them that this is the correct tool to use for the project. They work through some of the background information, and he points her to some research and data tools to use. He encourages her to continue to use the resources that Mei Ling and Ellie have provided, but also recommends a couple of colleagues who have recent experience in the grant process. Having experience right in the division will help Angie gain some additional insight into what could be included in the grant. In addition, they also talk about carving out specific time in the workday to be intentional and thoughtful when writing the grant. After a couple of weeks, Angie and her colleague finish their draft and work with the grant coordinator to finalize materials for posting, which means they are ready for Phase 2 and Phase 3. The steps in these phases include the posting announcement, an optional informational webinar and question and answer period, and reviewer recruitment.
When the grant is ready to be posted, there are several ways to make the announcement known to the public. Options include a superintendent's memo, social media, MDE press release, and Gov delivery. Specifically in special education, the grant can be announced through the Division Competitive Grants page and the Special Education or other public listserv. Both the Grants Coordinator and Division Content Manager can assist the authorized representative with the various announcements. In special education, we are very lucky to have our own Content Manager, who is an expert at various types of communication and technology.
During the application period, which lasts 4 to 6 weeks, the division has an option to present an informational webinar to potential applicants regarding the subject of the grant. This is done at the discretion of the authorized representative and the division. Another option is to have a question and answer period, which gives all applicants a chance to ask and clarify any qualifications or content. The authorized rep will be responsible for answering the questions, which will be posted to the public at least 5 days prior to the application period ending.
Phase 3 is the time for Angie to recruit reviewers for the grant applications review. Reviewers could be content experts from the Special Education Division or from another division, or an external content expert. The number of reviewers needed will depend on the number of applications that are expected, and it's always good to have a couple of backup reviewers in line, just in case. Reviewers will be asked to sign a confidentiality and conflict of interest form before being approved to review the applications. On the first day of the review period, approved reviewers will be required to go through an orientation, which is hosted by both the grants coordinator and Angie to go over the aspects of the grant, expectations, and procedures. With the review process underway, phases 4 and 5 have begun. The steps in these phases include the review period, drafting and sending award and denial letters, a transition to the grant specialist, and drafting and executing the OGAN. The review period, including the review time, discussion, and decision-making, could take anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks. The amount of time is dependent on the amount of applications and the availability of the reviewers. During this time, the application information is confidential and should not be discussed outside the reviewer group. The grants coordinator will help coordinate the review period and take care of ensuring all minimum qualifications are met by each applicant. As scoring is reviewed and a decision is reached, the grants coordinator will draft and send out award and denial letters to applicants, including any letters of disqualification that may occur. After an applicant has been selected, the management of the grant will shift from the grant coordinator to the grant specialist. The same grant specialist oversees all of the grants in special education. The grant specialist will work with the new grantee and Angie to ensure any pre-award work, including a risk assessment, is complete. Once everything is in order, an official grant award notification, or OGAN, will be drafted for signature and executed. The grant specialist will assist Angie to manage the grant moving forward, including financial reporting forms or invoices, and any future amendments. Angie realizes that she has not only learned a lot about the grants process, but also more about the alignment initiative that she and her colleague are collaborating on. She looks forward to working with the awarded districts, measuring her results and gaining capacity. In addition, she realizes that she will now be a valued resource for the next person who goes through the grant process. All grants resources, including this video and other fiscal processes, can be found in the Special Education Division Teams SharePoint site. Please don't hesitate to reach out to your state program administrator when starting your next grant. Thank you.